the subjective embryo of a developing object. The fragment is not treated as a broken or incomplete remnant of a lost whole. Rather, it is defined by its process of becoming. Its incompleteness does not stem from lack, but from the fact that it contains an idea or system only in an early and unfinished state. The fragment already holds internal coherence, even though that coherence is not fully developed. This approach also reshapes the concept of totality. Schlegel's claim that even the greatest system is merely a fragment establishes that no system can ever reach final completion. Within this framework, every fragment implies a system, while every system remains fragmentary. Totality is therefore not a final goal, but a limit that thought continually approaches without ever fully attaining. Schlegel's statement that all individuals are systems, at least in embryo and tendency, supports this view by positioning each fragment as internally oriented toward unity. Despite this orientation toward a larger whole, the fragment is not dependent or incomplete in a negative sense. Schlegel's descriptions of the fragment as complete in itself like a porcupine emphasizes its autonomy. Each fragment functions as a self-contained unit of thought capable of standing on its own without requiring completion elsewhere. A2 model. This model is something unfinished that can always develop. The red elements in this model emphasize the idea they interrupt the white and take attention in certain moments. The two boxes share the same system. Both have the same fragmentation, which is parallel but different intensity. Fragmentation here refers to the breaking of a unified form into discrete, independent elements. In the image, the planar pieces white and red panels no longer form a continuous surface or volume. They are separated, rotated, tilted, and dispersed across the base. Each fragment retains a hint of an original whole, but they exist as partial incomplete components. The whole is implied rather than physically present. Each fragment stands apart, emphasizing individuality and discontinuity. The gaps between them become as important as the objects themselves. Some planes appear to visually intersect or align in perspective, suggesting layering even when physically separate. Fragmentation as becoming of form means that the pieces of a design are not fixed or finished, but are constantly changing and evolving. Instead of creating one complete stable object, the form is made of separate fragments that interact with each other. These fragments can shift, rotate, or move, and through their relationships, they start to generate space, tension, and meaning. So the form is not something final, it is something that is always in the process of becoming. In my model, this is shown through the scattered and rotated elements. We had to write a paragraph about our site visit to Sanae and send our paragraph to ChatGPT and use this exact prompt. Enhance my paragraph without changing my meaning, make it phenomenologically. So this is my paragraph and this is a part of what ChatGPT did to me. At Sanae Park, the experience shifted to a more open and fluid spatial configuration. The park functions as a void within the city, where movement is guided by trees, views, and natural elements. However, the recent renovation introduced interruptions by reducing green spaces, creating a contrast between nature and built edges. This photomontage reads Sanae as a subjective embryo of a developing object, where the site is understood as forming rather than finished. Through fragmentation, the urban fabric is broken into facades, street, and crane, reflecting how the site is experienced as this continuous moment shaped by memory and perception, not as unified whole. The crane establishes a strong vertical axis, introducing tension and growth, while the suspension of fragments creates instability and a sense of incompleteness. This suggests a site that is still evolving and has not yet settled into a final form. The void surrounding the elements acts as a space of potential, emphasizing absence and openness to transformation. At the same time, the layering of old architecture, everyday life, and construction creates temporal depth where past, present, and future coexist. Overall, the montage produces conditions of rupture, instability, vertical tension, and temporal layering, revealing Sanae as a site in continuous becoming rather than a fixed urban condition. What is fragmented? The building and urban elements are broken into separate pieces, cut and reassembled. Site analysis. To better understand the site, I conducted a series of studies. I studied the levels of the site. There are slight elevation changes between 65 to 75 meters, which create natural variation. I analyzed the climate conditions, the sun path changes between winter and summer. With strong exposure during summer, humidity is around 60 to 75%, and wind flows across the site, affecting comfort in different areas. I observed how shadows are formed. Some areas are highly exposed to the sun, while others are more shaded and cooler. This creates zones with different thermal experiences. Natural elements in the site. There is vegetation spread across the park, a water feature at the center, and drainage paths that guide water movement. Site regulation. The area is mainly residential with pedestrian access. Some elements are protected and certain areas do not allow construction or require approval. I studied how people move in the site. There are clear circulation paths and specific access points that connect different parts of the park. Sound conditions. Some areas are quiet while others are affected by traffic or surrounding urban noise. Some zones feel very exposed to the sun, others are cooler and more enclosed, and in some areas you can feel wind and movement, especially with the leaves. Sectional walking Spears Street. It starts with the building before Radio Liban to National Library Garden. Design hypothesis. I propose a DJVG booth in which fragmentation is understood as a form of becoming. Rather than presenting a fixed or complete architectural object, the proposal treats space as continuously evolving through its fragmented parts. Each fragment acts as a moment in transformation, not isolated but part of an ongoing process of change. The architectural form is broken into elements that shift in relation, creating a dynamic condition where space is never fully resolved. The gaps and connection between fragments become active zones of transition, allowing movement, interaction, and reinterpretation. As users navigate the space, they experience architecture as something unfolding over time. Perception becomes sequential and open ended, where meaning is constructed through movement and change. Fragmentation is here not as disruption but a generative system, a way to express growth, transformation, and continuous becoming. Here is shown my DJVG booth dwelling from different views. The model is inserted in the National Library Garden, which I consider the most appropriate location. I created my model according to my hypothesis. Instead of creating a closed object, I used planar fragments to create an open structure where the experience unfolds through movement. It was made of A-series planar fragments which I use as independent surfaces rather than walls. These fragments are arranged in a way that guides the user through a sequence instead of enclosing them inside a space. The planes also guide movement around the booth and shape how people interact with the space. According to my prompt, it says that there is no enclosure, no facade, no finished form. It does not present itself immediately, it becomes legible through delay, sound, and movement. However, the dwelling is divided into the independent fragments such as living room, kitchen, restroom, and bathroom. Finally, the photo montage that shows my DJ booth placed in the library garden to show the realistic scale.